Trials of a Royal Guard. By Ansel. Chapter 41. Secrets of the Night. The six of us stood in front of a plain stone building. In the pale light of Farrell and Sunny's glowing horns, the architecture seemed to resemble that of the classical castles built by the ponies of old. It was called stacked stone, I believe. Structurally speaking, the dwelling was as far from a castle as possible. By that, I mean the building was not attractive, interesting, or easily defensible. It was a simple box without any character, the sort of place that would blend in on a street and go virtually unnoticed. What caused it to stand out now was that it was in far better shape than its neighbors. All of the windows and their shutters were still intact, and their cloudy glass panels obscured the interior from the street. The front door was similarly still in nearly new condition. The rot that had felled its piers seemed to have spared it. While there was certainly a chance that it was a stroke of luck, that just didn't seem likely in this case. Exemplar Farrell used her magic to push the door open before trotting inside. Tranquil followed along behind her. Sunny looked over at me, shrugged, and then went after them without hesitation. In the deepest depths of my brain, my trap sense went off. I ignored it. These ponies were my friends. If I didn't trust the Exemplar and Tranquil, what did that say about me? Other than the fact I was cautious after being in a war. I waited on Miley to go in before I did so. She'd be able to hold her own in a fight, and I could secure the door. We weren't ambushed, of course, and to my surprise the building wasn't empty like the others had been on previous visits. There were rugs, furniture, and even little knickknacks on the various surfaces. Everything was staged to look like a normal pony's home. Even the light grey paint that coated the walls still looked fresh. Tranquil motioned me over towards the back of the room. Here. There were doors to other areas of the home, but I guessed they weren't relevant to what I was meant to see. The Nox pony flipped a rug up, revealing the hardwood floor beneath it. "It hasn't rotted," I said. "That doesn't surprise me. Nothing in this building has rotted." She nodded. "True, but look closer. This is the part where the monster jumps out," Dr. Kitty whispered not so subtly to Miley, who squeaked and covered her eyes in response. I tried to put what was going on behind me out of mind. Mares. There probably wasn't a monster here. When I looked closer at the floor, I could see the subtle line of a rectangular cutout. "Trap door." Tranquil Dusk bobbed her head in a nod. "Indeed. We found it by accident. This building stood out so much from the others that it almost begged me to explore it." My nose wrinkled. So what made it unmemorable while this place was lived in betrayed its secrets when the rest was in ruin? Exemplar Farrell replied, "Indeed. There is much magic here. The building is shielded. As was this door." Her blue magic surrounded the edges of the wood and slowly lifted it up and out of the way, revealing a staircase that spiraled down. Dr. Kitty wandered over and peered down. "Nope, I was wrong. The monster is definitely down there." Sunny snorted. "There aren't any monsters down there." She then paused and looked at Farrell. "Right. None that we have found. Yet," the mare replied. Dr. Kitty set her hooves on Miley's rump and gave her a push. "You first." "No," Miley squeaked, her forehooves going rigid against the wooden floor. "This is amusing," Farrell said flatly. I wasn't sure if she was truly amused or if she was actually annoyed with the antics. It was always tough to tell with her. Her sense of humor wasn't exactly normal. There wasn't time to figure it out, though. Without waiting to see how the mare pushing contest ended, I went down the spiral staircase. I'd never really fought any of the monsters known to pony kind, but I had wrangled dragons. The trek down took longer than I imagined it would as I delved deeper. 2, 3, or perhaps even 4 stories down. I hadn't been counting. Eventually, my descent came to an end and I found myself standing in a long, rectangular room that felt an awful lot like a cell. The cell, as I'd dubbed it, was wholly barren. It was just smooth-hewn stones fitted together perfectly on the floor, ceiling, and walls. All were identical. The only deviation was the stairwell I'd come down on one side and a perfect stone circle on the other. It was a circular portal that looked an awful lot like the one that served as Starlight Grotto's main gate. This one wasn't as large, but it was still more than wide enough for 3 ponies to go through side by side. An alicorn wouldn't even need to duck to clear the top. This door, like the one that secured the city, was a single smooth piece fitted into a ring of stones. The stones were narrower where they touched the circle and wider where they fit against the walls. Hoof steps slowly resounded behind me as the rest of the ponies came down. Perhaps they'd agreed there weren't monsters. It would have been interesting to see how they'd decided that, but there was a more interesting puzzle to figure out. In the light of the unicorn horns, I could see that there were symbols emblazoned on some of the ring's tiles. These were icons quite unlike the ancient Nox pony symbols I'd become somewhat familiar with. In the 1 o'clock position was a simple fruit tree. At 3 was a lion while at 5 was a candle. Opposite those, a hummingbird, heart, and owl were in the 7, 9, and 11 positions, respectively. "This is the barrier of which I spoke," Exemplar Feral said from behind me. Tranquil added softly, "We have tried everything we could think of. We have found no keys, nor locks, nor secret switches." Feral nodded. My levitation spell, despite its power, was equally not up to the challenge of pulling the door free. "I'm afraid this is where our investigation ended." Dr. Kitty trotted up and held out the amulet I'd passed her during the fight. I touched it to the door. Nothing happened. "We tried that, too," Tranquil said. "Every pony get back, I'll cut it open," Sunny huffed. Kitty and I exchanged glances and quickly moved out of the way. "I don't think that is wise," Exemplar Feral said. There was no conviction in her voice, however. Sunny dropped her head, pointed her horn right at the door, and magical energy started collecting around it. "Trust me, I once cut Princess Celestia out of a dress after she overate. I'll be delicate." "How does that relate at all?" Miley mumbled off to the side just as a heat lance shot from Sunny's horn. When the white-hot energy impacted the door, it resounded like thunder. The whole room went bright as hundreds of lightning bolts burst from the stone and surged towards us. I threw myself over Dr. Kitty while the rest of the ponies scrambled to duck and cover. A blue bubble quickly formed around us, deflecting the backlash of energy and protecting us all as the exemplar stood firmly in place. Sunny shouted a litany of obscenities so long and heated that I felt my coat turn from white to pink. Dr. Kitty looked up at me and asked, "What is a tall tale tongue twister?" "I honestly don't know and I'm not going to ask to find out," I muttered, slipping off her and helping her up. Miley poked Sunny with a hoof. "Maybe try not to kill us all, please." Tranquil Dusk sighed and shook her head. "As I said, we've tried a variety of things. I don't believe raw magic force is what we need." Sunny swatted Miley with her tail. "Fine. Some pony else try something, then." Exemplar Feral settled onto her haunches and peered at the round stone door. Her head tilted as she looked it over, falling into silent thought. Miley trotted over to the stone ring that surrounded the door. "What are these symbols?" "I am uncertain," Tranquil said. "I've not seen them in use anywhere in the Nox pony cities I've visited. There isn't any indication of what they might mean." "Have you checked for secret doors?" Dr. Kitty asked. "We did. As well as secret switches, as I mentioned before," Tranquil replied. Then this is a puzzle. I love puzzles. I used to do whole books of them when I was bored." Dr. Kitty reached into her saddlebag and fished out a book. That caught the exemplar's attention. "What secret tome do you have there? Does it contain ancient knowledge?" "Ogres and Oubliettes, 4th edition, and no, it isn't ancient. Actually, this version only came out last year. Most ponies were pretty upset by the changes that were made to the game in it. There was a big backlash and a lot swore they'd never switch. I think it is super okay, though," Dr. Kitty said happily as she started flipping through it. Feral tilted her head. I do not know that tome. The scribes update it with great frequency? Is it from the Royal Canterlot Library? Sunny snorted. No, it's a role-playing game that nerdy ponies play. Dr. Kitty stuck her tongue out. Don't stand there and act like you don't role-play, Sunny. Besides, the ponies that write these books are really clever. Perhaps there is something in here to give me an idea. Oh, I role-play. Our games are more fun, though. Sunny quipped, sticking her tongue out before turning back to the door. The exemplar stood and came to my side. She whispered in my ear, "You keep strange company." I chuckled. Yes, well, they're good ponies. Let's go take a look at this thing together, all right? We've solved quite a lot of problems when we've been together. Indeed. Exemplar Feral nodded and the two of us approached the door once more. Perhaps it is based on a certain time of day or the phases of the moon. Dr. Kitty offered to know pony in particular. That isn't a bad idea, Tranquil replied. Indeed, the exemplar agreed before lifting her hoof to touch the ring. She moved it slowly upwards until it settled on the owl symbol. As she did, the tile immediately cast a brilliant white light, illuminating the room. Exemplar Feral's head tilted as the others gasped in surprise. She pulled her hoof back and the symbol's glow faded away. Once she replaced it, the light returned again. This has not happened before. No, it hasn't, Tranquil put in. I stood on my hind hooves to examine the symbol opposite the one she was touching, the lion. When I set my hoof on it, it started to glow silver and then brightened just like its opposite. Oh, I see. Dr. Kitty said cheerfully before trotting over and putting her hoof on the heart. As she did so, nothing happened. Sunny tromped over and lightly swatted at the other mare. You're doing it wrong. Dr. Kitty set both hooves on it and pressed down. I'm trying. Well, let me try, Sunny said before bumping Dream Pop off the heart with her rump. When she set her own hoof on the symbol, it burst into life, showering her in a coppery red glow. See? Let me try. Miley squeaked before pressing in close and setting her hooves on the hummingbird. It came alive, casting a bronze light into the little mare's face. Neat. Dream Pop twirled her hoof through one of her pigtails before reaching out and touching the fruit tree. To her delight, it exploded with light, throwing beams of gold into the room. Yay! Come on, Tranquil. Touch the candle. Touch it. The Nox pony nodded and did just that, setting her hoof on the candle. Dark silvery light shone from it and the entire room began to rumble and shake. With a groan, mechanisms beyond the door slowly came to life. The large circle was drawn inwards before being rolled off to the side. Stale, cool air poured from the inside, tickling my nose. We'd done it. The barrier required 6 ponies to open it, which would be relatively difficult to put together. Although that begged the question of why the symbols didn't light up before when Tranquil and Feral had tried. As a group, we peered into the room beyond. It was a fairly nondescript antechamber that featured the same stonework as the rest of the building. What was different was the 6 pillars that supported the ceiling. Each one was fitted with a silver sconce and a unicorn lantern. Dr. Kitty clapped her hooves together. We did it. We opened up the door to the next level. Exemplar Feral stuck her head in and reached out to the lanterns with her magic. Each one burst into light. Directly across from us was a large set of double metal doors. To the left and right were similar doors, just smaller. So we have. Now, the question is, where is what we seek? I motioned to Miley. Guard the door, I don't want any pony or anything to sneak in behind us. She nodded. Yes, sir. Do you think that is necessary? Tranquil asked. No, but unless we need her for another door, what is the harm? Better safe than sorry. Very well. Dr. Kitty set her hooves on my side and stood up. Okay, I say we split up and go explore each door. Sunny snickered. Just like in those books you read with your younger patients? What are they called again? The Pony-Do Mysteries. Every time the Handsome Stallion and two mares go one way while the Diamond Dog and Goofy Stallion go the other. Why do they do that? Tactically that makes no sense, I said. Dr. Kitty shrugged. I don't know. It is just how things are done. Tranquil's eyes rolled. Like wearing black cloaks. It was worrying me that Dr. Kitty wasn't taking the potential danger serious. Worse still, she was amusing me to the point that I wasn't as on edge as I should be. Then again, perhaps I should lighten up a bit. This was something of an adventure. As much as I'd like to learn my strategy from a fool's book, why don't we explore together? Sunny, watch our rear, I'll take point. My favorite thing to do. Sunny chimed happily as she herded Feral, Dream Pop, and Tranquil in front of herself. If you'll just step this way, ladies. There was some general disagreement, given Sunny's eagerness, but I didn't give them a lot of time to worry about it. This was an opportunity to explore the past and learn more about the Knights of the Moon. Dangerous or not, I wasn't going to wait around. Logically speaking, the larger door was probably where we needed to go. Despite that, my first choice was to go to the door to the right of the entrance. It might be a smaller area that we could clear quickly. Additionally, if this place turned out to be a maze, we'd always take a right turn to ensure we could find ourselves out. I trotted through the door to the right of the entrance and found it to open into a long hallway that stretched far enough to strain my vision enchantment's range. There were unicorn lanterns here as well that the exemplar kindly lit, revealing numerous doors evenly spaced along the walls. The further down the hall ran from the antechamber, the further the doors were apart. It only took a second to realize we were in the barracks. To confirm that hypothesis, I peered through one of the nearest doors. It opened into a small bedroom. There was little more than a desk, a chair, a bed, and a travel chest. This might be the perfect place to find out about the ponies that had been here. All right, every pony, let's spread out and see if there is anything in these rooms that might give us some information on our hosts. While the others started their search, I went into one of the larger rooms towards the end of the hall. These would be where ponies of higher status had lived. Despite the years of vacancy, the room was still in excellent condition. So much so that the perfectly made bed was still intact, blankets and all. It was interesting to know that barracks rooms hadn't changed much in 1,000 or more years. Everything I had in mind was here and the amount of space was almost identical. Whatever knight had lived here was likely at about the level of a major in the Royal Guard. To my disappointment, all of the desk drawers were empty. The travel chest was similarly void of contents. It seemed as if the room was ready and waiting for its next occupant. I left it and went on to the next one. It was the same. They all were. There was no evidence that any pony had ever lived here at all. Silent, this is a ghost town. I haven't found one shred hint that ponies lived here, Sunny called. Same. Dr. Kitty replied. And as with me, Feral said. It is as if every pony left and ensured everything was in perfect order before doing so, Tranquil added as she came out of one of the smaller rooms. I sighed and nodded. Agreed. We're not going to find anything here, so let's head back to the antechamber and check another area. We worked our way back down the hall, my combat edge starting to weaken. This just wasn't panning out to be a high alert area. Find anything? Miley asked as we came out. Not a single thing. Just a bunch of freshly made barracks rooms, I said before motioning to the larger doors. Clearing the smaller areas was just going to lead to more frustration. We're going to go down this center hall now. All is quiet. Yes, sir. It was time to find something useful. At least, I truly hoped we would. If the major area of the conservatory was similarly vacant, I would question why it needed to be hidden. There was also the possibility that the Nox ponies had cleaned it out when they'd left. Hey, I just realized something, Dr. Kitty said as we headed past the metal doors to delve deeper into the conservatory. What is that? Sunny asked. There are 6 of us. 2 earth ponies, 2 Pegasi, and 2 unicorns. Do you think that is a coincidence? I do not believe in coincidences, Exemplar Feral said softly. Agreed. The door had 6 symbols. 6 symbols, 6 ponies, Tranquil added in. Dream Pop giggled. Do you think we're going to be superheroes? That would be super okay with me. There are already bearers for the elements of harmony, Sunny replied, but then added, although, I bet I'd have more fun with the element of magic than Twilight Sparkle. Ah, don't be jealous, Sunny. I can help you work on that, Dream Pop said. Not jealous, the hallway ended into a second set of metal double doors. Hopefully, there would be something useful on the other side and not an empty room. With a deep breath, I pressed my hooves against the metal and gave them a strong shove, pushing them open. They swung wide and slammed against walls, the sound echoing through the room and hallway. Far behind us, I heard Miley cry out in surprise and then yell, I'm okay. Without action from Exemplar Feral, unicorn lanterns burst into light, illuminating and revealing a huge, 2-story study. Ooh, Dream Pop said. If we didn't find something here, we were never going to find something. This was the conservatory. This is what we were looking for. The stone floor just beyond the doors disappeared under a lush, blue carpet that looked and felt newer than what was in my bedroom. It went from wall to wall and made for a very comfortable and inviting surface. At the room's center were 4 long wooden tables that could easily accommodate 6 ponies on each side. The silver sitting pillows at each spot looked as if they'd never been used. To the left and right were workbenches nestled against the walls. A myriad of objects covered them, some were mechanical, some artistic, and others weapons. These were not in a neat, untouched fashion. They were clearly objects of study that had been abandoned. The focus of the room, however, had to be the wall opposite the way we'd come in. From floor to ceiling, left to right, interrupted only by 2 small doors, was a giant set of built-in bookshelves. Endless bookshelves filled with thousands of books and scrolls. I think it is going to take us a while to find what we need, Dr. Kitty said as she came in behind me and pointed. Look at all of those books. Sunny's head tilted. Yet, I didn't sign up for this much reading. I take back what I said, let's go get Twilight Sparkle. I mean, how are we even supposed to get to the top shelves? Tranquil Dusk merely flapped her wings and hovered off the floor, giving Sunny a smug look. Ah, Pegasus only, I see, Sunny muttered. This was going to take forever. We'd have to come here several times to get through all of this knowledge. Time was a luxury I didn't have, either. This jaunt was extremely important, but so was preparing for Ironhoof's return. The minister would notice my absence. For now, we had to look for critical, obvious things, and go through the rest later. All right, ladies, let's get to it. Look for anything obvious. Particularly personal journals, history books, things of that nature. We'll need to fight Silent Night. Come look here, please, Exemplar Feral interrupted me. She'd wandered past me while I was looking around and clearly homed in on what would likely be immediately useful, a wooden tray resting on one of the benches that was filled with crystals. Memory crystals? I asked, wanting to be certain. She nodded. Indeed. Neatly organized. 20 in all. To my pleasure, they were all white. This is as good a place as any to start, then. Yes. This will be faster than reading. The idea of dropping into memories never excited me, but this was a golden opportunity. These crystals could contain anything. Still, there was no sense in tying up 2 ponies on them. Why don't you get started? If you find one we all need to see, we can stop then. Some of these may be more mundane or not useful to us right now. Agreed, she replied before settling onto the floor, lighting her horn to cast the spell, and delving into a memory without a second of hesitation. Sunny looked my way. I should probably learn that spell. If I can, anyway. Couldn't hurt, I replied before flying up to the shelves. Hopefully, journals would be obvious, but the sheer volume of books was overwhelming. I'd been wrong, it wouldn't just take forever to go through them all, it would take a lifetime. Perhaps two. Especially without any knowledge of how they were organized. I ran my hoof along the spines, slowly working my way along a shelf to see if anything happened to catch my eye. Most of the books were nondescript, but several of them were bound just like the original set Moonlit Star had given me from Haven. One book in particular stood out from the rest. It was light gray and the spine bore a symbol of the sun with a crescent moon inside it. It seemed to be one of a kind when compared to all the others immediately around it. I pulled the book from the shelf and started flipping through it. All of the script was in High Marshal Moonglave's hoof writing. That was a good start. I turned back to the first page, on the houses of the day and night, a comparison by Moonglave. Just Moonglave? Was he being modest, or was this prior to his time as the leader of the Knights of the Moon? The first chapter was a general comparison of the roles each house served. It was fairly cut and dry. Sun this, moon that. I schemed it. Time was important here. Chapter 2 discussed the differences in magic that he'd managed to observe. More interesting and likely important, but still not what I was hoping for. There was no mention of nightmares or dream manipulation magic. After a few more dry, educational chapters, the scripting became a bit less careful and fell into more of a journalistic pattern. Based upon all known research at my disposal, there has never been as wide a gulf between the houses of day and night as there is at this time. They struggle to act in harmony and the gap only seems to be getting wider. This has become a major concern for Lady Noctina. I have reached out several times to my counterpart within the Sisters of the Sun, but am often met with skepticism. They, of course, call their lack of concern optimism. It is not appropriate for me to speak ill of such accomplished warriors and their leader, but I can't help but feel as if they are either silly, blind, or both. I paused from the book and looked down to where Sunny was standing behind Dr. Kitty, idly swatting her tail and clearly bored. That was going on while Dr. Kitty was trying to figure out what a copper device with hundreds of gears did, seemingly unaware of Sunny's machinations. Well, High Marshal, some things never change. The time of the eclipse nears once again. This is always a critical time for both houses and this particular event was meant to be one of no change. That will not be the reality, however. Lady Noctina and Lady Solara are traveling to Saddle Arabia together as I make this update to perform the ceremony of imprinting. This is being done without Maristella's knowledge, and I have been ordered to remain behind to keep up appearances. I have dispatched Nimbus Knight to ensure the safety of Lady Noctina. He is a knight with whom I can place my whole trust. He will not just defend her from monsters but, if necessary, other ponies. In this case, that may be necessary. Defend her from other ponies? Why? Especially if she was going with an alicorn of the day? This didn't seem like an issue between the houses. And who was Maristella? Beyond that, what were the odds that my ancestor was the bodyguard for another alicorn of the night? At this point, feeling surprised was probably silly. It did, perhaps, answer a few questions about why things had happened for me as they have. Assuming fate and destiny were real. I agree with her decision in this regard, but I am not yet in support of her plan for the proposed enchantment. Lady Solara, however, favors it strongly, and who am I to question what the alicorns do? Especially not after the great sacrifice made by Kalinda. Silent night, came the exemplar's voice, breaking me out of the text. Yes. I think you should come see this memory right away. All right, I replied as I landed beside her. Why right away? The exemplar turned towards me, the crystal floating gently within her magical grasp. She looked me in the eye and said plainly, "It is for you." Author's note. If you are enjoying this story, please consider taking a look at Crystal and Maya's website quillenblade.com for extra content such as mini stories, an Ask Us form to submit questions, responses to said questions, and special rewards for the awesome folks who support our Patreon. End author's note.